So Sairam, everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here. The love that I already feel, did you feel that love in the bhajans? It's so uplifting. Thank you, brother, for the introduction. And yes, it happens to be that the journey that myself, actually my whole family took, was very much the journey of leaping. And if I may, I wish to share with you how all this happened. And the reason I wish to share it with you is because it is actually a story of love. And love has to be shared. Love wants to flow. As Swami has said, that Swami came out for darshan because love has to flow, the love back to itself. As Swami said, well, actually, I'll ask you, why do you think Swami created this whole universe? Why is this universe here? Swami says, I separated myself from myself so that I might love myself. That is why we are here. So I wish to begin my stories and the messages that come through them because they don't just belong to me, they belong to all of you. This is not my story or my mother's story. This is his story. History is his story. Isn't it that when we hear the stories of Rama, Krishna, of Jesus, of the saints, that something comes through which is unspeakable, but it is moving. It is something that moves us, transforms us. So, how did my story start? Well, I have to first start with my mother. Not just because she was the one who brought me into this world that I could be physically here, but she was the one who brought me to Swami. And she's the one who surrendered me to Swami. So I'll start with her story first. She grew up in a country called Hungary in Europe. And she and her husband, my father, they escaped Hungary during the time it was a communist country. And they had moved first to South Africa, and that's where I was born. A year later, we had moved to the United States. And I grew up as a young man, or young person. And I ended up going to a school in a small town when I was maybe 10 years old in a place called Ojai, which is not far from where I live now. And during that time, I was now getting older. We had gone through life. My mother had raised me. My father had raised me. My father, he was very much more of an intellectual person. And he had a great transformation in his life. Actually, the reason we moved to Ojai was because of his transformation. And this theme that you're going to hear repeats itself over and over again. And it's the theme of taking a leap of faith. So we moved to the United States because my father's dream was to live the American dream. And so we lived actually on the coast. Eventually we had a boat. It was his dream to have a boat. The boat got bigger, the house got bigger, but I didn't see him much because he was fulfilling the desires that are in the world, the things that are shiny and nice outside. And we don't know that what we're trying to fill is a hole that the world cannot fill. But anyway, it got to a point in his life where no matter how much he got, he felt empty. And one day he went on a boat trip by himself. He disappeared, didn't tell us where he's going, and he ended up after 3 days, my mother had actually called the police, the Coast Guard. We didn't know where he was. And on the third day, he called from an island off the coast of California, and he said, "Don't worry, everything's okay, I'm coming home." And when he came home, he was not the same person. He was physically the same person, but suddenly he cared about me. He spent time with me. There was a sense of being in him that I didn't notice before. And within a few months, we had moved to Ojai because he had found his teacher, which was Jiddu Krishnamurti. And he had just opened a school in Ojai, and my father and mother took me there for a day to check it out. There were only like 5 or 6 kids in the class, and my parents it's a beautiful house that it's in. It's totally different than a public school. My parents asked me, "Would you like to go here?" And I said, "Of course." And so I attended the Krishnamurti school, and for me, as much as I really appreciated all the beauty and the type of school it was, there was something about it which I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand Krishnamurti. It was above my head. But there was something boiling inside of me at a very young age that I was yearning for, and I didn't know what it was. So let's turn the clock forward. I'm about 17 years old. And my mother and father one morning, my father asked my mother to sit down and asked her, "You know, our son is growing now. Soon he'll leave the house. What do you want to do with the rest of your life?" And my mother said, and my father said, you can get a new career. We can travel the world. What is it that you'd like? And my mother said, "Give me 3 days and let me think about it." And my father thought, "That's strange, 3 days, but okay." So after 3 days, Sarah? So after 3 days, my mother said to my father in the morning, "Come sit down, I have an answer." And my father even forgot that he'd asked the question, but she took it seriously. Now, just to give you a background, my mother grew up in a Catholic family, very strong Catholic family. Mother was very staunch. She had 3 Catholic priest brothers. She'd married an atheist, which my grandmother, her mother, did not like, so she was basically kicked out of the fold in many ways. So she grew up, with some background in religion, but for her, something was also missing. And she told me that before this question was asked to her, the week before, she was walking from a Safeway, which is a supermarket, with the groceries in her hand where we lived. And she had this incredible sadness inside of herself. She said, "Even though I had a mother, even though I have a good husband and a son, I still don't feel truly loved." And the moment that deep feeling, that saying inside of her came, a booming voice that covered the whole valley said, "Don't you know I've always loved you?" And she almost dropped the bags, and she looked around to see if everybody else heard this voice, but everyone's just walking and going. So a week later, she's ready to answer this question to my father. And this will amaze you. She has no idea anything about Sai Baba, about anyone who could fulfill what she's about to say. And she says, All I want is to find God, live with Him, and serve Him. All I want is to find God, live with Him, and serve Him. And what in my father's, he couldn't answer that. How could he help fulfill this? So the next day, my mother is cleaning the house. It's spring cleaning. And she's cleaning the bookshelves. And there's many different books, and as she's pulling the books out and cleaning them, she pulls out a book. Where it came from, we do not know. But she pulls out a book, and there is a face on this book, a very familiar face that we know. It's Swami. And the moment she looks at that face, she knew, this is him. This is him. She opened the book and began to read this book. And starting from the front to the back, she couldn't put the book down. And she wept because everything that was said in this book, she just said, this is truth. This is truth. And now what did she want? Where is this person? Is he still here? Is Sai Baba still here? So she joined a center there in Ojai. She found one. And within a few months, they were taking a trip to see Swami. Now, I heard about this and what's going on, and I thought my mother had flipped her mind. Who is this African man who lives in India with the afro? That's what I thought. In India, and then, you hear, I was very much more attracted and much more with Jesus, because that's what I was exposed to. You hear about gurus and the various things that gurus do, and I just thought, I just hope that my mother's going to be safe. Could this be, I don't know, some bad guy, an antichrist, or who knows what? So my mother gets ready to go on the trip, and she's going. My father is concerned as well. And so they get to Prashanti, and they get an interview. And the most beautiful thing happens. Swami invites everybody in, and everybody sits down, and Swami has her sit down in front of him. And Swami leans forward and puts his face this close to hers and starts singing, love is my form, truth is my breath, bliss is my food. And the sweetness and the love pouring from Swami, my mother can only do is just weep. It's the first time she feels truly loved. And you can only truly experience this with that grace that Swami provides. We have this Maya in our head. We have these ideas about what God is, who we are, and it veils us from being able to see Him. But here, my mother has found Him. So my mother comes back from this trip, and all she wants to do is go see Him again. And she starts telling us of His teachings and all of this, and oh my gosh, I'm just thinking she has really gone off the deep end. But she came back with a glow. She came back with happiness. At this time, I was into going after the shiny things of the world. At a very young age, I got married at a very young age. And the thing about this was that, there's this saying in the Buddhist, and the Krishnamurti also said it, that every desire leads to another desire, and it's unfulfilling. Because each time you get it, the next one has to be bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what was happening with me. I was living a life who I wasn't. I was going in a path that I didn't belong on, and I was lost. And I had the biggest spiritual ego you can imagine. I thought that I had very good insights. I could speak about beautiful things, about truths and everything, and I didn't realize that those don't belong to me. You know, I want to stress something so important. To be able to know Swami, in a sense, to be able to even hear about him, has required thousands and countless births of good deeds. Swami says this. And then to see his pictures, to see his face, to hear his voice, has required the countless good deeds of your ancestors. But to be able to recognize him as the divine, that can only come from the Lord's grace. So, oh my gosh, I think we need to wake up every morning with that sense that how important this is, how fortunate we are. So I'm full of spiritual ego. I feel like I know what's right and wrong. But one thing that was happening to me is anytime I would get quiet, listen to beautiful music, I would yearn for him. I don't remember the amounts of times that I cried, "Where are you? Where are you? I'll give anything. Where are you?" And I remember, and I'll connect this back because Swami tells me about what I'm about to tell you, but I might as well just say it. I'll give you a hint of what's coming. So I was in an interview, in my second interview with Swami. And Swami was telling each person what they're good at. So he turns to one person and says, "You do very good meditation, very good meditation. Keep practicing." And Swami explained to them how to meditate properly. Then he turned to a young man who was working in the canteen. He was from Germany, and he said, good seva, very good seva." And then Swami turns to me and he says, good devotion. And he's going like this. And the moment he does this, I go back 2-3 years to me sitting in my pickup truck, going to work, listening to some beautiful music that puts me in that place, and I was yearning and crying for him, and the tears were falling, and I remember getting to work and them asking, "Why is your shirt wet?" So, my mother, Swami started testing her, and that's the next big thing in spiritual life. Because Swami is going to ask you a question. Swami is going to ask you a question. What is that question that Swami usually asks people in an interview? What do you want? This is an extremely deep question, and one that you need to ask yourself not just once in your life, but pretty much all the time. Because it's so easy to wander off and want something other than what Sai has come to give. So, my mother, all she wants to do is what she said, is to live with him and serve him. And Swami had given her a flat, and I'll tell you a very funny story about this. So she had got on the list of getting an apartment inside the ashram because Swami had told her, "This is your home. You come anytime." So the problem is that thousands of people are on this list, or hundreds at least. And so she goes to the gentleman who is in charge of this list. His name was Colonel Jaggarao. He was Swami's right-hand man in terms of building the ashram, carrying his work out. And she goes to his office, and he's a very, disciplined the way he is. Like, this is how we do it. This is this. So she goes in and says, I want to find out, am I going to get the flat? And he looks down at the list, and he goes down, and he looks, and finally, oh, madam. He says, madam, you're at the bottom of the list. And so, you know what she does? She takes the paper, takes it and flips it around and gives it to him and says, now I'm at the top. And what does Jesus say? The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And because of the warmth and the deep purity, desire for my mother, guess what happened? The next morning, a person comes to her and says that, please come into the accommodation. We have something for you. So what was given to her? The keys to her flat. She got her home at the Lord's feet, and she was so grateful that she opened the door, she couldn't walk in because she considered that room holy ground because it is what God has given her. All she could do is put a picture of Swami into the room and put some incense and do some prayers. And finally, in the afternoon, she went inside. Now, Swami was telling her, yes, I gave you your flat. Every time she gets an interview, Swami would say, where's your husband? He's a very good man. You go back and you stay with him. He's waiting. And she would say, Swami, all I want is you to be with you. And Swami would constantly say this. And my father eventually did come, had interviews, but he could never see Swami the way she saw him. He saw him as a guru, as a master. So on, I think her third interview, Swami again told her, you go back, you go be and stay with your husband. Now at this time I was no longer living at home, and my mother was fully dedicated to living the life of a gopi. And so Swami said, you go back. Your husband's waiting. And guess what she said? And I think only you will understand this. She says, Swami, you're my husband. And Swami goes, oh, shh, don't say that outside. They won't understand. And I think you understand. It's not the kind of husband that we think of. There's so much misunderstandings about what divine love is. It's a purity. Swami is our father, mother, husband, everything. This is a divine romance. And Swami said, only God is male. We are all females, so sorry guys. We are all females. So my father comes for, I think, Swami's at Kodaikanal. And my Swami had given her a chain, not materialized a chain, but while she was in this interview that I said that Swami had spoken to her about going back, Swami had given her gone over to his table there, and there was a chain, a silver chain with the Swami's locket on it. And it was something that I think you could buy outside. It wasn't something materialized. And said, Madam, you left your chain here. And so gave it to her. And she didn't understand, what does this mean, this chain? Why? This is not hers, but she wouldn't speak back to Swami, so she took it. And so she wore this necklace, and whenever she came back to the States, what was I doing and my father? We were just berating Swami. All of his teachings, we were trying to debunk it, trying to say bad things about it. Oh, my poor mother, I feel so sorry. I'm sorry, Mother. And she would go out for a walk and she would cry. That why do I have to be persecuted this way? Wasn't Jesus persecuted? All the saints, they get persecuted. But as she went out for the walk, she suddenly started smelling this beautiful fragrance. And she looked down, and that 10 rupee necklace, cheap necklace, there was vibhuti coming off of Swami's picture there. And this fragrance that Swami has, which is the smell of heavenly jasmine and heaven itself, enveloped her. Swami was protecting her. So in 1989, my mother was in Kodaikanal and my father went, and this was to be a big change for her. And I think I'm going to have a slide here. Will it be ready? So she's in Kodaikanal, and my father is with her. This is my mother, Veronica. And I will tell you what this is, what's happening here. So my father offered my mother, please come back. You can open a center in our house. You can come and go, but just please come back. And my mother, she said, and the flight was going to be the next day, and my mother said, no, this is my home. I had finished everything I had to. We raised our son. Let me be free. Let me follow my Lord. And it was actually, wasn't it, when Jesus came to the disciples, he said, follow me. And then one person said, oh, I have to go back and close up my business. And Jesus said, okay, go do that. And then Jesus walked on. But when he came to another disciple, said, follow me, he dropped everything and followed. When the Lord calls, and this is, again, I'm saying this is my mother's path. My path is another path. So she had put the chain that Swami had given and realized what that chain actually meant. Because Swami had told me in an interview that the things that he materializes and gives us are not physical things. Swami only gives spiritual things. And she realized, what is the chain? The chain of karma. So she knew that this chain that Swami had given was this chain of karma, and she wanted to do what? Give it back. So she put it in an envelope and wrote to Swami, Swami, I give back this chain. You take my karma. And so Swami took that letter, and the next day my mother actually took candy with her. My father got on the airplane and left. And she's there with candy in a tray. You could do this back in the early 90s. And Swami comes up to her and says, where's husband? Just like before, Swami bugging her about this. And she says, he's standing in front of me. Huh? I'm talking to him. Huh? Swami says, and then she says, right here, I'm looking into his eyes. And Swami takes the candy and throws it and says, chain gone, husband gone. Very happy, very happy. You know, this is what the Purna avatar is capable of. There is no other guru on this earth, and there's no other power besides that who set everything in motion. And out of that love came down and spent time with us, spends time with us every day. He's with us all the time, just waiting for us to surrender the things that we don't need to carry. We carry the burden of life on our heads, on our shoulders. Swami says, take it, give it to me. But we have to know what we're giving Swami, and we have to give it from our hearts. You can't just say, okay, here it is, Swami. Well, what are you giving him? You have to know, you have to go through life. We have to go through the ups and downs to come to the point of surrender. And surrender doesn't mean making a mental decision about something. It's coming to a point that He has set up for us to realize we've been carrying and walking a path that's not who we truly are and need to follow. So, who comes next after this? So my mother is in Swami's fold right now. And I am back there in the States, and I am suffering. I am married, where our marriage is in the ups and downs. She's a very good person, and I must say I was a very selfish person. And that's the thing, is that Swami's way is giving and forgiving. And our ways, when we look to the world, when we become selfish, is getting and forgetting. We want everything. We want to fulfill ourselves with relationships, fulfill ourselves with the things, with the job, with all those things, and we totally misunderstand what those things are for. And we forget about who we are. And who are we? This body, this mind, it's a tool. It's an instrument for Him to work through, for love to come through. It's not one for us to take over and do our own things. But I didn't really know that. So as she became happier and happier, glowing and glowing, peaceful, I was going the opposite way. So I first visited Swami in 1989. I went with my wife, and I thought that my first interview, I would get my first interview that time. Swami would just walk up. This is my big spiritual ego. I thought, I'm going to go there, and he's going to see me and just pick me, and he's going to help work things out for me. I got there, and to me, India was such a shock. It was so different. I couldn't make sense. Why would God, of all things, take birth in a place like this? It's backwards. Not only that, why not a city where you can get to see Him easier? No, He's in the middle of nowhere. And back then, it was difficult, and I'm sure there are people here who are much older than me who had to go on bullock carts to see Him. And that's the thing, is that the thing that matters takes a journey. This difficulties we go through make the journey more real. If everything is just handed to you, just gifted to you, it's not earned. So we need to earn this way. That's the way that this spiritual journey is. So I end up there. My mother's there, so happy to see me. We end up in the shed. Oh, I didn't like the shed whatsoever. It's dirty. I can't sleep. I'm on the floor. And so the first darshan comes, and I get seated way in the back. You take chits, where people go in, it's certain rows, and I'm in the back. Swami doesn't look at me. I don't feel a thing. I just see this guy walking around. I said, what's the big deal here? He's okay. And I gave it 2 more tries. And eventually I said on the 3rd day, I'm going to find myself a real master, a real guru, the ones that are up in the Himalayas. Swami is not for me. So I got on a train with my wife. We took the train to Delhi. It took 3 days. It was pretty interesting travel. Got to Delhi. It was probably 100 degrees, probably 90 degrees humidity. There were no hotels open. We even got to a hotel and we asked, do you have rooms? And he says, yes. And how much does it cost? And he tells us. And then I said, okay, then we'll take it. And he says, I don't have a room for you. And I said, what are you saying? You said you have rooms. He says, yes, we have rooms, but they're occupied. Swami was just one after another, just really, really pushing the buttons. And then what did I get gifted with? With the deli belly, which means I got very, very sick. I ended up for 3 days in bed. Nothing could stay in my stomach. It was just very bad. And finally, after only maybe 8-9 days in India, I said, I had enough. I'm leaving. I went back, and same thing kept going. And I remember there were days I couldn't get out of bed and go to work. And I went to doctors. They couldn't figure out why I had no energy, why I couldn't move my arms, my legs. And I only realized later it was because, again, I was going this way, not to him, but away. He's the source of all energy, and I was going away from that. And so finally, I think it was a year later that I said, okay, I'm going to go by myself. I'll stay for 3 months, and this time I'm going to read Swami's teachings. So I went there. My father was there too. It was a whole lot different. I read his teachings. I started to study all of them, started to realize the depth of truth that was coming from him. I started to understand that all these gods and symbols and everything were signposts that were ancient, that connected back to something that was timeless. It started to make sense. It started to make sense why Swami is the way he is. It started to make sense why even Jesus wasn't born in Jerusalem. He was born in Bethlehem, in a manger. And I know that when we do it on Christmas, it looks all clean and nice and everything, but that's where the animals are, and they go to the bathroom and all that. How is it that God would do that? Because the Lord is the servant of us all. The Lord is the most humble. And that's the thing when I saw Swami didn't come here to get praise. He came to serve. I am the servant of servants. Absolute humility, and something that we must learn is to be humble. Especially as Sai devotees, we can get a big chip on our shoulder. Hey, we know the avatar, and you guys didn't. I've met so many beautiful, beautiful people who practice Swami's teachings and know nothing about him. Far better than myself and others. Everyone. In my last interview before coming back in 1997, Swami told me to go back and see Father. And I don't know why it came out of my mouth, but it's because Swami prompted it so I would learn this lesson. But I said, Swami, he's not a devotee. And Swami said, hey, don't think separate. All are coming to me. All are coming to me. You have to think with a broad mind and a broad heart. So I'm there for 3 months. And I remember reading the Bhagavatam and practiced Monam for 7 days, and I sat there, and I would get first row every day, 7 days in a row. Swami would come and stand in front of me, and still I didn't know who he is, what he was. So after Christmas came, and I said, okay, I know Swami's teachings now, I've absorbed all of this, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to put my life back together. We're going to fix our relationship, and I know that I've got it all down. I went back and everything just collapsed. Our relationship just really didn't go anymore. We separated. And I remember I couldn't find a job. I was doing engineering, and then I couldn't get a job. I went and started doing carpentry just to put something in my mouth, food, and I was living in a garage, in my friend's garage. And I had two pictures, Swami and Jesus. And I remember falling on my knees and saying, one of you, just one of you, please help me. I didn't know how to put them. How can there be two gods at the same time, right? So I couldn't sleep, and I went to see my father. And I said, I don't know what to do. And of all people, what he said is, why don't you go back to India, stay there for 6 months. Before that, send your resumes out. And let's see, when you get back, you may know more about who you are, what you want to do, and maybe there's a job. And here's the interesting thing. He was the one who was the most doubtful of Swami. And then I said, but I don't know who he is. And I said, I know you don't, but who is Jesus to you? I said, he feels like a brother. And then how about Swami? I said, he felt like a father. Well, why don't you treat him like a father then? I said, okay, that works out. Father, son, hey, that's good. I'll be his son. So I said to my father, I do not have money to go. And next day I went to the bank. There were no cell phones back then. You couldn't check your bank account like you do now. So I went to the bank. I asked the teller, please, can you show me how much money I have? So she wrote it down, piece of paper, and gave it to me. I looked at it, and I passed it back, and I said, I think you have the wrong account. No, that's the right one. And I take it, and there was enough money in there to buy a ticket to see Swami and stay there for at least 6 months. That was Swami calling. So, as I mentioned, I had read Swami's teachings, I had Krishnamurti's teachings, the Bible, and everything, and I was trying to find some piece of scripture, something there that can fill this up so I can be happy, truly fulfilled. So I take the pile of books with me to India, and my mother is so happy that I arrive. And I end up there, and the days go by, and I remember sitting, and I'm reading one of these books in the house, in the flat, and my mother comes up to me and pulls the book down like this. So she looks in my eyes and said, why are you here? I see smiles. You get it. I'm here. I could be reading anywhere else. Oh my gosh, it suddenly occurred to me, Swami. That moment, a switch flipped, and all I wanted was an interview. All I wanted was to talk to him. I need help. But how do you get in an interview? And I heard that, the best way is if you join a group. So I went to Darshan that afternoon, and I'm thinking, how am I going to join a group? I came by myself, and I'm sitting there, and see how Swami's just arranging everything. The walls of my life are getting narrower and narrower, and I don't realize that the master of masters, who can move every single one of us, as he says, not a blade of grass can move without my will. But he sets everything up. My life is being set up, and I don't realize it. And I hear these people speaking next to me. They're speaking English, and it's American English, so I'm a shy person. And I kind of lean over, where are you guys from? And they said, oh, we're from California. I'm from California. Oh, that's neat. Do you think I could join your group? And the group leader, at least on the men's side, his name was Lad Bogdanoff. Some of you may know Lad. And he said, yes, you can join, but you have to do 3 things, and then we'll let you join. And I said, what? Well, if you join, you have to do seva with us, service. You have to come and we do satsang, and we do bhajans together. If you can agree to doing that, you can join, because Swami loves unity. If we have unity, he might call us in. And I never went to bhajans. I thought bhajans were silly. People sitting going with ching, 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 this kind of thing, singing in language I don't understand. But I was getting desperate. Okay, I'll do it. And I thought maybe devotees are weird people, and I've realized as the days went by, getting to know these people, they're just like anyone else, but not just like anyone else. They have a sense of peace inside. They have a sense, you can feel this thing that they're not afraid, because they have someone has their back, truly has their back. So now comes the big stuff. As the days are going, I'm literally feeling the same way my father had felt. I felt that my life, everything that I had done, everything that I am, is empty. What's the purpose of my life? I've yearned for God, but it never got me anywhere. I've read about God, it's never gotten me anywhere. I've gotten things, I've possessed things, I've possessed my wife, I possessed this, I possessed that. They never made me happy. So I was feeling this existential crisis. I was feeling actually a time clock ticking down, tick, tick, tick. So one day we get first row. And Lad is there, the other guys are here, and Lad leans over and says, okay, when Swami comes, we're going to ask him for an interview. And I go, oh my God, I'm going to have to talk to him? Now suddenly things start to change, that you're going to actually talk to him? But I saw, well, there's a bunch of guys next to me, so they're going to ask first. So Swami comes from the ladies' side, and he's coming over, he's taking letters and walking, getting closer. Then first comes one of our guys in the group. He doesn't say anything. They're all like, like this. Then it's Lad. He's frozen. And I'm like, oh, there's one more guy. He's going to say something, nothing. And then finally it's me. And Swami stops, slows down, and it comes out of my mouth. And I said, Swami, interview. And this Swami looks down at me, but it wasn't this 5'4" man. It was as if the whole universe had stopped just for me and looked down just at me. And I looked into those eyes. This was not the eyes of an antichrist. It's not the eyes of a man. I was looking into infinity. I was looking into something so incredible, and it spoke to me. He said with the sweetest voice, "Where are you from?" And I managed to say, "From California." And he says, "Where?" And I said, "From Ojai." That's where I was living. "Ah, Ojai, I will see, I will see." And he walks off. And as he's walking off, I no longer, from that moment on, I no longer see a man walking. I see the avatar walking. I see beauty walking. Everything, the way that the wind blows his hair, the way he moves, the way he glides. It was beauty in motion. And then my mind came back and said, "Hey, come on, this was just a guy who asked you, where are you from?" And I told this devil on my shoulder, "Get away from me, because this is the first time that I'm truly happy." I no longer feel lost. I feel found. And what happens next? I want more of this. So days go by, the time bomb is ticking, and this day is coming, I feel, and there's not much time left. I can't explain what that is. So we get another first row, I don't know how many days later. Same thing happens. Everyone freezes, and it's my turn to again ask for interview. And Swami had called in just 2-3 people. And I've seen 20, 30 people go in that interview room. But Swami, I said, Swami, interview. And he looks at the veranda and he says, I've invited too many people. The room is too small. And why is he doing this? He's pulling my heart. He's making me yearn, making me work for it. What do you really want? So finally, on March 4th, 1992, I woke up and the time was almost up. I could not picture myself beyond going to darshan. It was like, not suicide, but this emptiness. There was no longer a Leslie who exists past that time. So I go to darshan. I have no emotion inside of me. I feel like I have been just taken apart. I go to darshan. We get maybe second row across from the ladies' side where Swami would walk across. And the gentlemen in our group were writing letters to Swami, and I just said, give me a piece of paper and a pencil. And I wrote down this: Dear Lord, I don't know who you are or what you are, but I give this body, this mind, and my soul to you. I'm done. And this wasn't my mind saying this. This was truth saying this. This was absolute truth. And so Swami came, and as he came from the ladies' side, he sees me, and he walks right over to where I am, and I get up on my knees. Because this is the day. And I show my letter, and Swami starts to take the letter, and I said, Swami, interview. This parrot saying interview. And what does Swami say? He looks at me and then he starts to walk off and say, I will see, I will see. No, you're not going to do this again. From the depth of the deepest part of me, and came out of my mouth, please, Swami, please. And I'll tell you this, if you cry out from the bottom of your heart, the Lord cannot stop and turn to you and be there for you. Remember this. Because what does he do? He turns around and his face is like Krishna and he says, go! And I get on the veranda. I probably got up there in record time, world record time. Decorum was gone. I ran up there. I sat down, and I don't know how long later, the rest of the group started to show up. And I'm sitting on the veranda, and then people are crying. They're shaking. I see my mother come up and sit down, and I'm totally calm, and I'm saying, there's something wrong with me. I should be shaking. I should be crying. And so Swami is talking to some of the people on the veranda, and finally it's time for the interview, and he invites everyone in. He stands next to the door and says, come. And everyone's going in, and I'm the gentleman because I'll let everybody go in first. That's the last time I did that. Because you want to get inside there, but... So Swami finally says, come. So I walk in, and it is packed. There's not a place to sit. So I look way in the back, and there looks like there's a spot way against the wall. So I go way back against the wall, and I lean against the wall. And guess what happens next? Sai Baba comes in to the interview. But to me, it wasn't a 5'4" man. What walked into that room and turned on the light and sat down was the end of the road. There's no more searching left to do. My mind had become so small, had been turned off, that what was so much that I was looking for had been fully turned on, and that was my heart. And I was bathed in this presence that I felt, that I've known since the beginning of time. But Swami is not something that I've been searching for. He's always been there. It's me who has gone away. And it is the mother who said, it's time to come home. You've played around long enough. And I'm there, absolutely fulfilled, in this incredible thing of how is it possible that that immense infinity can be emanating from that small, sweet little body. And I was realizing that feeling was emanating from within me. What we see outside, Swami says, is none other than the reflection of your inner being. And what did Jesus say? Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Before this moment, my heart was not pure. It was covered with judgments, with controlling my life. But at the moment of surrender, the mind took a back seat. And what I was seeing, my heart was pure, and what I saw was pure. I saw the Lord with us. And God, divinity, avatar, those words cannot express what it is to be in that. So guess what happens next? He starts to ask people a question. And I think you all know what that question is. Now, just to set you up here, how did I come to Swami? The first thing I wanted was the things of the world. I wanted a wife, I wanted this, I wanted that. Then the next step I took was I was reading philosophy, the Bible, Swami's teachings, all of that stuff. That didn't fulfill me. But right now, because my mind was gone, my heart was fully open, I was fulfilled. So Swami turns and looks down at a gentleman sitting in the front row in front of him, and there's a young man with him. And Swami says, "Sir, what do you want?" And he says, "Swami, could you please find a wife for my son?" And Swami looks at him and says, "I will speak to you separate." And when I saw his face, I saw Swami was like, "Is that what you came to ask me for? Of all things?" But Swami's sweet because he says, "I will give you all the things you ask for until you ask for the one thing that I have come to give you." So I see Swami is like not satisfied, and he looks around, and what's the next step? He looks and sees another young man, he says, and says, hey you young man, what do you want?" And he says, "Swami, I want to know more about God." Can you believe it? This is the steps that I had taken. I wanted a wife, I want the things of the world, now I want knowledge, right? And here Swami's asking this young man. And Swami says, there's 5 different knowledges of God. And he started saying them all, but I didn't hear it because I was gone. I didn't need any explanations because I was in a place where everything was fulfilled. And so then Swami looks again, and not only that, but I started to realize my face was hurting. So why is my face hurting? Because I was smiling so hard, because I was in bliss, I was happy. And then Swami looks around, and then suddenly he looks and he says, "Hey, you boy, what do you want?" At me. And if my mind was there, I wouldn't have said what I said. But my mind was gone. I was fully present. There was no future, there was no past. And what came from my mouth was what my heart wanted to say. And if you would have asked me, would I have said this just a few minutes ago? No, I was not prepared for that question. But what came from my mouth was, all I want is you, Swami. And Swami gets up and he goes, good boy, come here, come here. And I walk up and trying to not step on people, And Swami goes like this with his hand, and he grabs a silver object from the sky. And shows it to me. It's a Shirdi Baba ring, and he wants to put it on my finger. But what do? I take my hand away. And you go, what? Swami's giving you something, you're taking your hand away? And why? My mind wasn't there, but what was there was, that is creation. All the things that I ever got from this world never made me truly happy. The one who created it all is giving me this experience of being one with him, being in that ocean of love. And then he goes, no, but I made it for you. And I said, I don't want it. And then he goes, then he puts it in my pocket and he sits me down in front of him and he asks me, how do you get to God? And he says, and this is a thing that all other teachings, we want to read long scriptures, long things, and Swami is the Lord of simplicity, of getting down to the truth. And he says, follow the 3 P's. Patience, perseverance, and purity. Follow those 3. And Swami says, just take even just one of those things and practice it. And that's one of the things that that's part of LEAP, is putting things into practice. So he keeps asking me, what do I want? I keep saying, all I want is you. And he keeps doing that. We get into the private interview room, and there behind me is an Italian group and the Americans. And Swami sat me down right in front of him. He put me down actually almost on his pillow, and he put his feet on my lap. And he asked me again, what do you want? I want you, Swami. And he takes the ring out and he puts it in front of me this close, and he blows on it 3 times. And the breath of the Lord was on my face. And each time he did that, I felt eons of when we come into this world, we're like a blank record that has no grooves. And as we go through the world, we put grooves on them because of our tendencies. It's our vasanas. And every time we're born, that record, the needle goes back on those grooves over and over because we just repeat the same things over and over. But Swami's come, if you surrender, he will wipe those away. He will help you to get rid of those. And I felt it as he blew 3 times, those grooves going away. And then it became a golden brooch in an instant. And he looks behind me and he says, Madam, this is for you. And it was an Italian lady, and she goes, oh, Swami, thank you. She's so happy. And everyone she needed that connection with Swami with that item. And he sits down and he looks at me and one more time says, what do you want, boy? And I said, I want you, Swami. And he says, take me. And what did I do? It's exactly the theme of this retreat. I leapt into his lap. I literally went into his lap and I hugged him like this. And then what does Swami say? No, like this. But such a deep teaching suddenly came to me. Wait a minute. It's not Swami's body that I'm wanting. It's coming through that body. As Swami says, you can have a mother, and as she grows older, you feed her, you take care of her. She ends up in the bed. You massage her feet. But once that soul leaves that body, do you keep massaging the feet and feeding her? No. The body is just an instrument. It's not the form that we love. It's the formlessness that comes from that body. That sweetness is what comes through that tool. So Swami then asks everyone to leave, and he then we all go outside, and then Swami then does this again, and now a golden bracelet is materialized. And he's going to put it on my arm, and here we go again. And so I'm like ready to do, I don't want it, but he grabs my arm and he puts it on because he knows better, right? And he doesn't let go. He drags me into the private interview room, closes the door, and he says, this is not a trinket like those things. And that golden bracelet was beautiful gold with an Om, and it was all pristine, and I felt my arm like fire going up at electricity for a whole week. And it was first gold, eventually it became silver, then it turned to like rust, and eventually it broke off. So I knew it had a total different purpose. You know, our master is the doctor of doctors. He's come to heal not just our bodies, to heal our spiritual bodies, to heal our souls. And then he starts to tell me why my relationship with my wife doesn't work. He says, when she's up, you're down. When you're down, she's up. Different minds, different thoughts, separate. And then he started telling me about an incident that happened that only I knew about. He told it down to the detail. He reenacted the whole thing. And all through it, Swami wouldn't sit down. Swami kept pacing. I felt this feeling like, finally my child, after so many lifetimes, millions of cycles of birth and death, has finally come home. And I felt that Swami was ready to give everything to me, then there. But Swami set the motion and the rules of this world. Swami won't break them. You know, we watch a movie about loving, about a love story. We don't want to see the end right away. We want to see the trials and tribulations, how they come together, how through adversity and all those things. And at the end, when everything comes together, it's real, it's sweet, it has a meaning, it has a depth, a reality. And that's what was happening here. But I felt that Swami was ready to give everything. And then, when Swami turns around, Swami tells me to leave the interview. He tells me, I hear this voice, and he says, I will give you liberation. And then I start to turn around, because the voice that's coming from him is not the sweet, small voice. It is the voice of the divine power. And as he's saying this, I remember the letter that I had given to him, where my mother asked me to write a letter from your heart of what you want. And he's saying exactly what I'd asked for, because I had written a letter that he had taken. And all I asked for was, all I want is to live a divine, magical, mystical life. And here he is, if you have patience, perseverance, and purity, saying to me, I will give you liberation. And then he says, I will give you a peaceful life, a divine peaceful life. And as he says this, I'm ready to collapse. This was too much. Can you believe having all of this all at once? A person who just 20 minutes before this was just a lost soul, and now absolutely found, and then having all this grace dumped on me. I don't want to use that word, but just showered on me. And it's not because there's anything special about me. All of us are this. All of us. Swami has come to call us home so that we may leap into our mother's lap. And I was about to collapse, and Swami grabs me, and he's so much smaller. He's strong, and he carries me out, and he sits me down. And then he tells my mother, you run canteen and son helps. And my mother asks, when should we start, Swami? And he says, tomorrow. That's Swami. And so, I'll finish in just 2 minutes. I want to leave you on a beautiful cliffhanger, because I feel that this journey that Swami's put me on is so beautiful, because the next What was to be 6 months of being there turned into this 5-year odyssey of living at his feet. And it's not easy, because a lot of grace will be showered, but to whom much is given, much will be demanded. And the thing is that all these lessons and teachings and difficulties and ups and downs, you have to share them. I love to share them because this is his love. It is his story. So we left that interview room, and immediately after this interview, people started coming and asking, "Oh, we heard that Swami told that you're going to open the canteen. Can we help?" How would they have known? Swami just told us. This is his hand. And sure enough, the next morning, we opened the canteen with toast and breakfast and oats and everything. It's a long story, and there's much more to tell. But I just want to say, we are so, so, so lucky, beyond lucky. He has come to guide us back home so that we can be like him, not run away into the forest, but like my brother here said, to have head in the forest, heart in him, and our hands in society. He didn't come here to teach us to be yogis sitting up in the mountains. Swami actually said, if you take a yogi from up there and you bring him into a family life with children, and just see what would happen. It's difficult, but we're here to live like Jesus, to live like Sai, to give love, to serve, not ourselves, but everybody else, to love everybody else, and love yourself. Remember that too. Don't forget, this is the temple of God. Take care of it. Love it. We are so blessed, and I thank you so much for allowing me to share today. Sai Ram.